thank you so much for joining us for another one of our animal care interviews. This one is going to be super fun. I think you guys are really going to dig it. It's really, really unique in a lot of ways. So thank you once again for checking us out. Before we get started, I want to say huge shout out to everybody for coming in and visiting us. Yes, we are open. We are under some different state guidelines as well as some different USDA and accreditation guidelines. So we have a lot going on, but you guys have been fantastic with supporting us. So thank you so much for coming out. And if you can't come out and you can't travel with us yet, that's okay. Keep checking out our Facebook page. We're still going to be posting a ton of content on there, and it's a great place to donate as well. So if you can't come out and support us with your admission fees, don't worry. We're still absolutely requiring that people still get involved and follow us on that, even to be able to see and interact with us, because we know so many of you won't be able to come out quite yet. So if you want to be able to donate, please, you can donate right here on our Facebook page, or you can go to lionhabitatanch.org. Donations are a huge help. They are still keeping us afloat. We are not out of the woods yet, guys. So all of those donations are a huge help. Don't forget Amazon Smiles as well, where you can keep on doing your online thing, and we just get a little bit of those without you ever having to go and stop it. But also, we're going to be putting together an Amazon wish list soon, so maybe you want to go and put together some specific items that you want to go and gift to the habitat. That'll also be a huge help, so keep an eye out for that in the future. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get started. If you don't know me, I'm Keeper Kylie, and I'm absolutely so excited to have you here for these interviews. They're super duper fun, and I'm gonna ask that my guest join me. Guest, who are you today?
So my name is Casey Fox.
Awesome. And what is it that you do or have done in the animal care field that is so unique?
So this was a few years ago now. Back in 2011, I worked for a traveling bug zoo or education unit.
That is so unique. And I know this is the part where everybody listening is going, ew! No, guys, bugs are awesome. And this is why I was very excited to have this interview, because when we talk that there's a lot of different fields, I mean it. And there's probably somebody out there who's interested in this. So this is absolutely great to be able to join us. Thank you so much for joining us, Casey. Where are you from?
So originally I'm from Southern California. That's where I was born and raised. But in 2012, I moved out here to Las Vegas, and that is where I have been living ever since. And the education bug thing that I did that so many people are like, what is that? Was done in Southern California.
Nice. That is really great. So why don't you go ahead and explain what this Bug Education Act was?
So what we would do is, it was called Dr. Sue's Traveling Bug Zoo, and Dr. Sue had her PhD in entomology, and she just loved to share everything about arthropods with everyone. And we would go to schools and special events and libraries and all different kinds of events to tell people all about arthropods.
Now, that's a pretty big word out there. Why don't you go ahead and just give a quick explanation of what an arthropod is?
So an arthropod is something, a type of animal that encompasses all the different orders that you're thinking of, with insects, arachnids, millipedes, centipedes, and crustaceans.
Nice. So yeah, guys, the bugs in our world, those kind of creepy crawly things that maybe make you kind of stay away. There's a million of them out there, guys. There's probably more than that. So they're actually really important. And she mentioned that the doctor was a doctor of entomology. Entomology is the study of insects. Entomology, not etymology. That's the study of words, and that's totally different. Did you have any kind of education or certifications or even skills? Was there something that you think a person should really have if they wanted to maybe get into it and work around bugs for a living?
So going into this, I was 21 at the time. I had been volunteering for a zoological facility, the Santa Ana Zoo in Santa Ana in Orange County, California. And I happened to work in the education department, and Dr. Sue used to come and do special events with us. So it was kind of a buddy system between the different entities. I had taken a entomology course with an emphasis on arachnids, but that was by no means a prerequisite for doing what I did. Because so many people have a tendency to think bugs are icky and creepy and crawly, there's not a lot of people that want to work with them. So when Dr. Sue found out that I was super interested, she invited me along to an event to help out and see how it went. With her particular education circuit, it was just a matter of being available, being interested, not being creeped out by bugs, and wanting to share all of that with everyone else.
Awesome. So yeah, if you guys were following our education and our educator interview from last week, public speaking is definitely something that really does help you, probably more than you would think in this field. A lot of people think, I'm just going to work with the animals and that's that. Well, it helps to be able to show and share and how amazing these animals are. So public speaking does make a good thing, but also not screaming and running away in terror is probably a pretty good skill, I'm assuming. So you probably have to learn how to be around them, even if you're not quite comfortable there. I was definitely that guy. I didn't like working with them when I first started, but now I'm pretty okay with them. And I actually think a lot of them are pretty neat. I've always thought they were pretty neat. I just thought they were pretty neat over there. So it's been something that I've had to go and work through, but now that I have and I've learned how to do it, guys, it's so fun. They're so neat. I love them. Why don't you go and explain kind of what it did, if you had to go in and take care of any of the little guys beforehand, what was that like if you had to do any of that? And then what was it like to actually go through and do a showcase?
Absolutely. So going and taking care of the animals, which we did, they were all housed at Dr. Sue's apartment or townhome. So we would go over, or I would go over because she lived there and that was her daily reality. There were certain days when, yeah, all we did was clean enclosures, and enclosures were usually smaller terrariums or they could be tubs. We had quite a few totes that would have things like mealworms to show the different life stages of the mealworms, the pupa, and then the beetles that followed. And they usually lived in either oats or some other type of substrate that needed to be sifted. So we'd get some really dusty days. There would also be misting days. We had a lot of arachnids, a lot of tarantulas, and so a lot of different tanks since they're not housed together. I think at different times she probably had hundreds of terrariums. She also had a lot of silkworms that she would supply to classes. So a lot of maintenance for them was changing out the mulberry leaves, which are one of their primary diets. And she kept those all in tubs. So sometimes it was just a matter of rounding them up from wherever they had walked off to and started to spin their cocoons, or whatever else. It was never a dull moment, that's for sure. It was always something very, very different. As far as the actual showcasing days, I would usually get over to her house an hour or two before the actual program, and we would get all the terrariums for the day, anyone that we were going to take with us, Tetris them into the van, make sure everyone was in their appropriate enclosure, make sure they were all where they were supposed to be and safe to get to where we were going, and then undo all of that when we would do a presentation. And like I said earlier, it could be for school. We did presentations from preschool on up to college, library events, special events, and whatnot. Do our entire presentation. Usually invite people up at the end to, say, touch a millipede or a blue death feigning beetle or a mealworm or something like that, so that they'd get the hands-on approach to it at the very end, and then Tetris it all back into the car, theoretically, if everything went right. Sometimes some of our creatures like to go for a stroll. Had a centipede once that wanted to explore the interior of the van. So that was fun. But usually things went exactly how they were supposed to, and then we Tetris back and undo all of it back at the house.
Awesome. That I think that sounds pretty amazing. Having millipedes and stuff. Guys, if you haven't seen them, they're actually really really neat. I'm sure when Denise watches this video, she's going to scream. So guys, feel free to make fun of her entirely for this, but I think it's great. When you were working with them, or just in general in your very eclectic career, did you ever have a favorite animal that stands out, either a species or a specific individual?
So with all the arthropods, I definitely enjoy working with the millipedes. The millipedes are honestly my favorite as far as the education goes. They get that creepy crawly because there's so many legs, and so many people are so opposed to them at the beginning, but there are so many things to teach about them. They're large enough to where most people can see, and they can see the legs, and they can see them move in their little waves. And they've got their exoskeleton, which is larger, obviously on the larger species, so it's easy to point out and talk about exoskeleton. And also a lot of times they tend to roll up before you even bring them out, so you can talk about defense. They're just a great, well-rounded arthropod to talk about. Non-arthropod wise, I'd be a liar if I didn't say that the Virginia opossum was my favorite animal.
That's amazing. And I haven't had that answer yet, so good on you, because that's pretty impressive. I always like it when I'm surprised. So what is something, I mean, already the job is pretty surprising, but was there something that when you told people what you did that just nobody ever expected? And you're like, whoa, wait, you do what? Or I'm sorry, what?
Honestly, just that in itself, just saying, yeah, I work for a traveling bug zoo, and people are just like, what are you talking about? Even Denise, when she asked me to do this, she messaged me, she's like, hey, you want to talk about when you work for a traveling bug circus? And I'm like, zoo, but sure, because so many people think it, and when I say that, they're like, oh, so like flea circus, like what's they don't know what to think about. So many people think that if they're going to go through and learn about bugs, that they're probably going to work in some form of pest control. When I did take that one entomology course, that is exactly what my professor said. He's like, here are a list of pest control companies that you can work for. And it's like, no, there are so many other avenues for entomologists or aspiring entomologists other than just pest control. And different forms of pest control, there's all types of research and education to go with it, obviously, but then there's the thing that everyone thinks about, which is extermination, which I, for the most part, don't want to exterminate my buddies.
Yeah, I actually really like Madagascar hissing cockroaches. And it's the part where everyone goes, ooh, I had to work with them a lot in college, and you develop a pretty good relationship with them. Like, you respect them, and after a while, you're like, you're cool, buddy. You're cool. I see you. And that's really awesome that you were able to go in and start that, especially from a young age. Preschool is a pretty good age. I mean, I feel like preschoolers would probably be like, ew, cool, at the same time. But that's pretty fun. That's awesome. I mean, you've already kind of touched on it, but was there a common misconception about your job?
A big misconception is that I've always been comfortable around with all types of bugs, and the fact is I hadn't. Most things I loved. I mean, when I was little, I grew up right near Disneyland, and more often than going on rides, I would be over on Tom Sawyer's Island digging up roly-polies in the dirt. That is what I wanted to do. But spiders and I have not always had the best relationship. I never wanted to harm them, but I never wanted them near me, to the point that I, at one point in my life, was actually afraid to even look at photos of spiders. And after learning more about them, and that's the main reason I made myself take the entomology course with an emphasis on arachnids is because I didn't want to have that hold up. I knew that there would be something that would make me appreciate them by learning about them. So I wanted to push myself to do that. And I'm glad I did, because one of the first things that Dr. Sue did after I volunteered for a couple different programs was she looked at me and said, all right, it's time to get you a tarantula. So I'm really glad that I was no longer absolutely terrified of the sight of them. And then I did go on to have multiple tarantulas as education animals as well as personal pets. And I'm fine now with all types of spiders and bugs in general. I have the respect for them to leave them alone, but I'm also not afraid of them like I was before.
That is such a great story. I absolutely love it that it's something that, one, you realized in yourself. You're like, hey, this is something that I realize that I don't know a lot about, and I'm willing to change that about myself. I think that is a really, really good story to begin with. Guys, you don't have to love every animal that you ever work with. You don't have to love every person that you've ever worked with. You don't have to go and be good at something the minute you get out of bed. It takes time. It takes learning. It takes effort. And sometimes it can take effort to go and learn to love things, but it's still worth that effort in the end. So I think that's a really great story, and I'm really glad you shared that, actually. That's really awesome. Did you have a favorite part of your job?
Being able to educate so many people and being able to provide an animal that people have a tendency to be afraid of and watch them either overcome their fear or just watch them gain a new appreciation for the animal, especially like the millipedes and, like you said, the Madagascar hissing cockroaches. That was another big one for hands-on education. We also, for adults, had a tendency to, if people were super comfortable with it, we would allow them to hold our Chilean rosehair tarantula. And for so many people, just to walk them through it and to let them know, you know, your hand is the ground and they have no reason to be upset with the ground. Keep your hands flat, keep your hands steady. I will hold your hand. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I was a demo hand so that they could get comfortable with the bug just close to them, and then walking through that and getting them to the point where one of the tarsal claws, the claws at the end of the toes on a tarantula or other types of arachnids or insects or arthropods in general would touch their hand and they'd be like, oh, that's cool. Or they'd have a millipede walk across my hand with their hand in the middle and then continue to mine. And it was just like, they loved it. And then they'd ask to hold it again and again. And then they'd continue, if we were at an event, such as like Boo at the Zoo, where we were a constant booth, we'd see the same people come back 5, 6, 7, 10 times just to get that again. And it was really cool to see people leave with a new appreciation for something that I loved so much.
So great. So great. My inner educator is just shining through. I love it. It's so awesome. What was the hardest part of your job?
Watching some of those same people, not the ones that had wanted to, and sometimes some of those people, watching some of the people that would come through at events like that and have someone in their family or friend circle that would try to instill the fear of bugs into them. It had to be, I mean, I know they're bugs and a lot of people just would be like, oh, it's just a bug. But I don't want my Madagascar hissing cockroach to fall onto the floor, and I don't want any animal to be hurt, and I don't want any kid to be scared or adult to be scared. And so many times, you know, I'd be holding a cockroach or a tarantula or a millipede, and a kid would come by and be so excited, and their parents would grab them by the shoulders to try and get that jolt or that scare to just, it was almost like an association, and they wanted them to be afraid of it because it was obvious that the parent or the friend or the whatever was afraid of this animal and they needed companionship in that. And that was always really hard. Sometimes we were able to break through with the adults or the whoever was with them and actually get them to hold something. And then it was like that wonderful moment of appreciation. But that was definitely the hardest thing, was to watch, especially for kids, just have fear or disgust instilled from such an early age with something that is all over the planet and is so beneficial to our ecosystem, such as our arthropods.
Yes, yes. That's a great point. Guys, if you remember our beekeeping video too, that was another one. We're so instilled with this from the very beginning that it's bad, it's scary, stay away. When 98% of the time they can't do anything to you, and they honestly don't even care. They just want to go and do their job. You are not on their list. And it's just a good little appreciation. If you take the time to look at the world around you, they're doing really cool things. And if you learn about that, it's gonna get that appreciation across. And this has been a really great interview to help with that. I'm really excited about this. Before we wrap up, if kids, I think a lot of kids are already kind of interested in bugs. Like, there's that growth factor, but I think they are really already curious about that, which is one thing I love about you guys. I love that you guys are so curious. Never ever lose that. But if you met someone who was like, this is the coolest thing ever, what would you tell them about maybe getting into the career?
Just to keep that fascination and that love for the natural world. There are, I mean, if you look up videos on YouTube of entomology, if you look up things about bugs, if you just keep inspired with that passion and just keep going, and the more you learn how to do things properly, and I say that because there are, I'm not going to tell anyone, oh, hey, just go out and just like grab all the bugs you can. Because especially here in Las Vegas, we have quite a few things that don't want to be grabbed. You don't want to go out and go, ooh, shiny tarantula hawk, and then grab one of those things, because that's no fun. Or a velvet ant, or any number of things, scorpions, tarantulas. To just have a respect for the natural world, but also keep that yearning for more there. I breaking into entomology, I was hesitant. I didn't know what I should do or what I could do. So I just kept looking for more resources, be it a college class or a YouTube video, or now, I mean, I sound old, but it's like now you have the internet, you have all these things, all these resources at your fingertips, whether it be a really cool Instagram account or YouTube videos or whatever else. Just like, honestly, keep on learning, because I'm still learning. Everyone is still learning. If you're not still learning, like, you're stagnant, and you got to keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Oh my gosh, this was such a fun interview, and I had so much more appreciation. Again, I'm the guy who thinks everything is cool, guys, but this is a really fun one, and I love that you showed that you didn't necessarily start out this way, and that's okay. It's okay to realize that you don't have to love everything immediately, but as long as you're looking at the appreciation behind it too, that's still a really good path. You might not have to necessarily want to cuddle it, but as long as you can say, oh, that's cool. At the end of the day, I think you're a pretty awesome person. All right, guys. I think that about wraps it up. Casey, thank you so much for joining us today. This was super fun. Guys, if you have any bug questions, if you have anything, drop them in the comments below. Please, of course, share this video. Maybe you have somebody in your life that you're like, hey, I think this career field might be good for you. Go ahead and pass this video along, because you never know who you might reach. In the meantime, also just share it in general. That's a great way to get the word out about the Lion Habitat Ranch, and that's a really good way to help us reach more people as well. So please always share these videos. Again, please, if you are able to donate, that is still a really, really big help. We are absolutely just astounded by your outpouring of support so far. But if you do have a little bit more that you're able to go and donate, please feel free to. And again, if you're not, that's okay. But by sharing this video, you can help reach more people who maybe can. You can donate right here on the Facebook page. Check out our website. Always check out the Facebook page with the most up-to-date information because, guys, every day is different right now. We're just doing what we can, but your patience and support has been so appreciated. All of the staff has been commenting about how amazingly just kind and caring and supportive you have been. So we really do think that. Please keep up the good work, and we'll see you again soon. Bye, everyone.